You've seen it at the back of your local Lego store. The wall of bin after bin of different bricks and elements. The question is the pick and build wall, or commonly referred to as Pick-a-Brick, really worth it? I'll try to answer this question and give some tips on how to maximize your Pick-a-Brick dollar. First of all, since my last video looking at the Pick-a-Brick wall, Lego made a big change. Goodbye plastic cups, hello cardboard boxes. So, are these boxes better or worse than the old containers? Well, ignoring the environmental consideration of plastic versus paper, my first reaction, these boxes look small, real small. But let's take a more analytical approach. Now, you can see the measurements for the small box, which gives us a volume of just over 31 cubic inches. The calculation for the plastic cup is a little more complicated. They're not truly cylindrical. The sides taper out slightly, and then there's the bottom cutout. But if we take the measurement at the middle of the cylinder, and then we assume that we're using all the space available, including the stud at the top, we can approximate the volume as that of a true cylinder, and doing the math, we get a volume of about 37.7 cubic inches. So, on a strictly volume basis, the cardboard boxes are worse than the plastic containers, being about 17% smaller. But, in reality, it's nearly impossible to fill up every inch of the plastic container. It's like trying to put a square peg into a round hole. Now the box, well, it's so much easier to fill. You can completely fill the box with bricks, especially if you take the time to connect them. Which brings us to the first tip towards maximizing your Pick-a-Brick haul. Connect the bricks. You cannot just take a handful of bricks from the bin and throw it into the box and call it a day. The key to getting your money's worth is to minimize the empty space in the box and cram every square inch with bricks. Of course, connecting the bricks will take time, and that brings us to tip number 2. Take your time. Plan to spend at least 15 minutes, a half hour, or even more at your store standing in front of the wall. It will take time to plan out how you will pack the box and connect the bricks. Now tip number 3, be creative in your packing. Not all pieces are rectangular. Some elements will naturally cause gaps to form. Sometimes you have to get a little creative in filling all the space. Some examples? Well, one time, the wall had these clear wall elements. You could stack them together like this and be happy, or you could alternate them to create these larger openings and then stuff more elements into them. Here, I added in these leaf elements. Another time, the store had these lattice wall elements. This created some large openings amongst the lattice supports. Well, I just connected these white candle elements and packed them into the gaps. Now, tip number 4. Start large and then get smaller. Well, this should make a bit of sense. Start off by filling the box with the largest pieces you wish to purchase. Then, you can start to fill in the remaining space with smaller elements until eventually you're left with mostly a small space to the sides and the top, which you can then fill in with the small tiles or other tiny elements that might be available. At this point, you might be concerned that you can't fully close the lid of the box. Well, here's tip number 5. It doesn't have to. I asked my Lego sales associate, and he told me that as long as they can tape the lid shut, then you're good to go. When I filled up my large boxes in the past, this is what they've looked like, and I was good to go. Here's tip number 6. Always use the large box. Unless you have some particular reason to use the small box, always fill up a large box. The small box is $9.99 compared to the large box at $17.99. The large box is twice as big as the small box, but it's less than twice the cost. $2 less than if you were to buy 2 small boxes. And one last tip, if you are seriously looking to expand your brick collection, you might need to take frequent trips to your local Lego store, as the selection changes constantly. And you never know when your store might put out that particular brick you've been needing to finish your build, only to have it quickly disappear. So to recap, here are my tips for maximizing your Pick-a-Brick experience. Tip number 1, connect the bricks. Tip number 2, take your time. Tip number 3, be creative. Tip number 4, start large. Tip number 5, don't worry about closing. Tip number 6, buy the large box. And tip number 7, visit often. Okay, to wrap up, let's revisit the original question. Is the Pick-a-Brick wall really worth it? The answer, yes, provided you follow these tips. My mantra is, wasted space is wasted money. Now compare the retail cost of these boxes if purchased directly from Lego.com versus the Pick a Brick wall, and you can see how much money I've saved using the wall. Now, if you have tips of your own or want to share your stories of successful Pick a Brick trips, leave them in the comments below, and be sure to like and subscribe for more.